Hello, everybody, and welcome to our November Klamath Film meeting. So great to have you here as well. And Bowen over there is getting some food. He'll be back in just a minute. Everyone knows me here, but I'm Kurt Lidke. I'm the interim executive director of Klamath Film, former executive director, still kind of quasi executive director for the time being until we hire someone new.
Leaving it and getting my volume.
Welcome to our November Klamath Film meeting. This is probably going to be the last one that we hold outside for a couple months just because of weather, but we'll still be doing this every month online. This is intended as an opportunity for networking possibilities to meet other filmmakers and people with interest in film in the Klamath Basin, hear about upcoming projects, and welcome a special guest. So tonight, our guest is going to be Jesse Blanchard, who is a film director, and he specializes in puppetry. So we're going to get to talk about a lot of puppets on film and how all of that works. So, oh, hey, Lori's here too. Hello, Lori. Or give it a second for Lori to connect.
Yeah.
Hi, Lori. Lori, hello.
Hey, Kurt.
Hello. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I was just getting started with the general introduction, so you haven't missed anything. This is probably going to be the last meeting that we have outside for a couple of months, just because of weather conditions. I brought the extra thick winter coat tonight, and we'll see how long Cassidy and Bowen can hang out before it gets too cold. But thank you everyone for being here. There are some exciting announcements that I want to present. But first, let's go through introductions, because I think there's a couple of people here that our regulars may not know. So again, first of all, my name's Kurt Lidke. I am a filmmaker. I am a drone pilot. I'm also a pilot. I am the videographer for KCC, so I get paid to make videos all day long. And I am also the executive director of Klamath Film, this nonprofit organization that I appreciate all of you being here so much to participate in. Bowen, why don't you introduce yourself?
So hello, my name is Bowen Browder. I am currently an admissions counselor for Oregon Institute of Technology in Klamath Falls, Oregon, or just Oregon Tech. In the meantime, I like participating in these Klamath Film meetings. In this point, I would consider myself an aspiring actor, always looking around to see what I could do to not only learn more about the craft itself, improve my own abilities, but also see about more acting opportunities just around, looking to get into projects like that and just making myself more available. I'm also a very recent graduate of Oregon Tech itself, so I'm an alum of the area, a Klamath Falls native. So I love it here. I've been here my whole life. It's a very fun time.
Well, we always appreciate whenever you can make it over, Bowen. And Cassidy, your first meeting. Thank you so much for being. Well, kind of like we'll say, well, one and a half.
Quasi, yeah.
So everyone hasn't had a chance to meet Cassidy. Yes, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Super nice to meet you. Hopefully you can hear me in the mic. Great, thanks. Yeah, I've lived in Klamath Falls for about 1.5 years now. I work here in conservation, just doing really anything conservation related, and I'm really interested in communications, particularly filmmaking. So I've been working on different video editing and working with the Adobe Suite, and so just kind of aspiring to do more film work and photography. So really excited to be here, and it's such a cool resource that Klamath Falls has. So thanks for welcoming me in. I appreciate it.
And your specialty is kind of environmental based filmmaking,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So one thing that I'll have an announcement coming up soon that you'll be particularly interested in. Wayne, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Well, good evening, Bowen. Good to see your face almost. Say hi to your parents for me. I'm Wayne Sweat. I am an actor. I've also produced and directed some low-budget short films. I could go more into my story about acting, but just briefly, I've only been doing it for about 13 years. Got started on a dare not too terribly long ago. Although the last year was fairly slow as far as me acting. I've been in about 36 different productions, whether it's plays or stage productions, commercials, shorts, feature films, what have you. And so, yeah, Bowen, if you'd like to talk sometime, and I'd be glad to share with you some ideas on how to pursue acting opportunities, how to learn how to act, things like that. I could go on forever. The Irish may come out and I'll end up usurping the entire meeting. So with that, I'll pass it on.
Thank you.
And Howard and Joyce. Joyce, by the way, is our newest board member.
Thank you very much, everyone that voted.
Mm,
I'm an independent photographer and digital artist here in Klamath Falls. And actually, beginning on November 7th, we will both have new work at the Klamath Art Gallery for the holiday spectacular exhibit and sale. And Saturday the 7th is the opening day and reception. So all the artists will be there and everyone's invited. It's open to the public. So be nice to see you all there.
Fantastic. And Howard, yourself, sir.
Yes, Howard Stapleton here. About all I need to say is I take pictures.
Lots.
Yeah. Howard took lots of photos at our film festival this year. Howard and Joyce were our official photographers for Klamath Independent Film Festival. And thank you for all your work on that.
It's fun.
Mary Jane, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mary Jane, and I'm just a person who enjoys film, and and at the same time enjoy the presentations. I'm an author of a children's book. My present emphasis in life right now is trying to find new creative ways to market the book. It deals with overcoming adversity as a children's book that I think would speak well to the way things are in today's world. We've lived in Klamath Falls for over 10 years and we like it.
Well, and you've sold at least one because our guest last month bought your book during our meeting.
Yeah, I sold one I have sold a few, but yeah, I sold one then and I was pleased with that.
Yeah, Mikey bought a book during our meeting last time. So
yeah, the instant sale.
yeah. Cord, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Cord Kanick. I'm the vice chair of Klamath Film. My background was in film music and scientific filmmaking. And now I teach astronomy at KCC. That's it.
And Lori.
I'm a Klamath Film member for several years now. I don't think it's been quite 5, but I was on the board for a couple of years, and then I volunteer with Klamath Film, and I enjoy watching films and people shoot or edit their short films that they've made. And yeah, I just really like creative endeavors and art. I actually gonna have a couple of my poems published in a book, The Basin Bards, 44 Poets of Klamath County, I believe is the title to be. So that will be coming out sometime soonish, maybe in the half year. I'm not exactly sure the timeline, but yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Maybe we'll have a few more people join. Our guest tonight emailed me a little while ago, said he would be joining us at 6:30, but I have a few announcements before that time. First of all, though, does anyone have any sort of projects or any announcements or anything that they've been working on that they want to share with the group? Or
I don't have anything directly related to film, but I just kind of wanted to talk about it.
yeah.
So I officially graduated from Oregon Tech like last month or a couple of months ago, except it's just today that I officially received my degree. And I can now say that wrong side. So I'm now officially a degree holder from Oregon Institute of Technology.
Fantastic.
Literally a degree holder.
Exactly. I have the degree in my hands.
It may not be yours, but it is a degree and you are a degree holder.
Yeah. Don't tell anyone. I took it.
We need to go through for 4 years. Just show up and grab it and run, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it.
Well,
I was able to obtain my BS in communication studies, and then I also received a certificate in dispute resolution and conflict negotiation.
I could be in communications too, but I don't have a piece of paper to certify that.
But congratulations, man. That's absolutely awesome.
Yes.
So
Excellent.
It feels very nice.
yeah. Oh yeah. Now in 30 years time, when you're done paying off the loans, it'll feel even better.
Well, I was able to actually, I was able to get through college with no debt.
Oh, wow. Now that
Awesome.
is worthy
Yes,
of.
that is worth cash flow.
So even though the film festival is over, we still have quite a bit of stuff going on that I need to go through a couple of quick announcements. First of all, next week we have a world premiere of a film that was shot here in Klamath. Al Jazeera channel has an ongoing series called Fault Lines. And they were out here earlier this year. It was the 5th film shot in the Klamath Basin this year, which is a new record for us. So they made a film about it's called When the Water Stopped. And it's about the history of the bucket brigade and also the current drought and water fights between the tribes and irrigators. And they did use some of my footage that I shot. If everyone remembers that one really weird night where a bunch of like counter protesters showed up downtown thinking that Antifa was going to show up. It was just a couple of college students with cardboard signs, but there were like 400 people with guns. So they used some of my footage in that. It's going to be available for streaming, and it's going to world premiere next Wednesday, November 10th at 3:30 p.m. So if you get Al Jazeera, set your DVR, because they're going to have a film that world premieres all about Klamath County and our ongoing water issues. So I think that's something you'd probably be particularly interested in.
Yeah.
So that is the 5th film that's been shot here this year, which is awesome for us. We will have soon a 6th film shot here. There's a film, the feature film called Wayward Son. And it's a film that I've talked about a little bit before. It's changed titles a couple times and it's gone through some changes, but it is a film about essentially about a Crater Lake park ranger that goes a little vigilante when there's a child kidnapping. Yeah, do you want to come join us?
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah,
no problem.
Totally fine. Pull up a seat.
Okay.
This is Klamath Film. Yeah, every month we hold a meeting. So we just went through introductions. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Jeffrey.
Are you the one who signed up for us earlier today?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, appreciate you being a member.
Oh, yeah.
Feel free to grab a mic and lean in and
okay.
introduce yourself.
All right. All right. My name is Jeffrey. I'm a filmmaker.
Hey, Jeffrey.
Sorry.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Oh, hi. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I moved to Klamath about 2 years ago, and everybody had seen my film and been saying you should really check out this club. And here I am, finally, after 2 years.
What is your film?
It's just a B movie made for $85,000. But we were able to distribute. And,
Okay.
yeah.
When was that released?
2019.
Okay. Well, to give you a little bit of background about our organization then, we are an eclectic group of filmmakers, actors, photographers, and just film fans. Every month we get together like this as a networking opportunity, a chance to share projects that we're working on. And every month we have a special featured guest from the industry that joins us for a very casual Q&A. Tonight, our guest is Jesse Blanchard, who's a filmmaker who specializes in puppetry. So we get to talk about puppets tonight and how
Fantastic.
whether or not they have egos on set or whatnot.
I'm sure they do.
So as a member as well, we also have an extensive collection of professional film equipment that you are now eligible to check out for free anytime. So I included that in your introductory email. I'm here, by the way.
Nice to meet you.
So anytime that you have a project or you just want to test stuff out, you are welcome to, we have a one-page form you can fill out. We've got C-stands, lights, microphones, cinema cameras, lenses, tripods, gimbals, all sorts of equipment readily available. We store at the Ross Ragland Theater.
Wow.
And so we can coordinate anytime. Just earlier today, what was it today or was it yesterday, Court, that you were a part of that chamber event?
That was this morning. Yeah.
Okay, so the Chamber of Commerce.
And Nick announced to the world they were using our gym.
Yeah, so one of our members borrowed our 8-foot camera jib this morning.
Oh, okay.
To do there was a photo op downtown where they brought together all of the Chamber of Commerce members to recreate a photo that was taken 100 years ago.
Oh, that's cool.
So
that's great.
That happened this morning. Cord
Yeah.
represented us there because I couldn't be there due to work obligations. Thank you, Cord, for being there. Appreciate it.
Sure.
So I just mentioned before you showed up, next week we have a world premiere of a film that was shot here.
Oh, okay.
Al Jazeera was here earlier this year for a series they call Fault Lines. And they made a documentary about the ongoing water fights between irrigators and tribes and the Bucket Brigade of 2001 and the weird protest we had in May downtown, and how all of that ties together.
Right.
So that's going to come out next Wednesday at 3:30 on Al Jazeera, and it'll be streaming on the Al Jazeera website as well.
Cool.
Sorry, you can't see it better. The TV that I set up took a hit on the drive, and it's out of service now.
Oh, no.
So we have several productions that are planning to come here. The next one is going to be a feature film called Wayward Son that is planning to film in Pelican Point, Lake of the Woods, and Crater Lake in probably spring of 2022. It's a feature film. They're still lining up cast, but they're trying hard to possibly get Frances McDermott to star in it. So that would be a really big deal. They are looking to hire local crew, possibly local casting as much as possible. So as I get more information in this production, right now they're just getting connected with a local producer to start to develop the film in more detail. But that's a photo of the director and producers who came up from LA to do some location scouting last year with me. So this has been a project that's been in the works for a while, but it's starting to really come together now. So looking forward to having that film shot here. The director is Martin Hilligoss, who is going to be his feature film debut. He actually grew up in Ashland, but lives in LA now. USC film grad, and for the last 2 years, he's had short films in our film festival. Also, we have Netflix coming to town. In early 2022, there is a British film crew that is making a documentary about birds at Upper Klamath Lake and Tule Lake Refuge and the migratory patterns of birds on the West Coast. So they're going to be here filming for about 3 to 4 weeks. They're looking to hire local crew to help. So Cassidy, hopefully you're listening, because they need someone who's willing to spend a lot of time with cameras pointed at birds in the lake. They possibly want to have me help out with my submersible water drone in the lake and a couple other things. Drones around birds obviously gets a little tricky.
Yeah.
But they're looking to make this film, and as of now, the plan is 3 to 4 weeks they will be in town. So extensive work that may be available for people who are willing to work. They want to hire locals as much as possible. I will have
Can you tie feathers onto your drone, Kurt, and shots of some eagles?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking more because I have 2 drones. I have an aerial drone and I have a submarine. And so
with the aerial drone, you get some good shots of eagles if you put some feathers on it, a little bit of bait.
Yeah, I mean, and I have gotten pretty close to birds. I mean, for certain hawks and eagles love to attack drones.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, that happened to me.
Issues, and I don't want to have my drone destroyed. So we can see. But that's very exciting that Netflix wants to come here for that. So as I get more details from them, I will of course pass them along during the meetings. But just wanted to let you know about that. There's also auditions coming up, Bowen and Wayne, if you're interested, anyone else. The Linkville Playhouse down on Main Street is having auditions next week for their next play. Whether you're an actor or not, they always need volunteers and people to help, and they will find a place for you, whether you want to be on stage or behind stage. If you have interest in that, their next play is called Hold Please, and it's specifically a play surrounding 4 women. So if you're interested in being a part of that play, there's more details on the Linkville Playhouse Facebook page, but November 8th and 9th, they'll be holding auditions for that. So they need.
You want to audition in drag.
It's not Rocky Horror. So
I think I can pull it off.
I think there may be at least one or two male roles in it as well. You may want to just double check.
I'll check the casting details if they have.
Yeah, it's up on their Facebook. So with that, unfortunately, I have a couple of films from our guest tonight that I wanted to show to introduce. Hey, Kat, hello. Welcome. No, totally fine. I'm just going through introductions on a couple of things and the announcements of what's going on. Feel free to pull up a chair wherever going for you. Maybe move your back. And then we'll give Kat a chance to introduce yourself. We'll grab that mic and bring it over.
Sure.
Chance to get a drink of food yet?
I'm good.
Okay. So why don't you introduce yourself, and then in a couple of minutes we'll have our guest come in.
Hi, I'm Kat. I am a Hollywood and film lover of sorts, and I also am really into music. Super huge Disney nerd. Also, I am a huge Henson nerd, so that's why I'm here tonight. So.
Terrific. Well, let me backtrack just a second, because Kat, you may be of interest with this. Next week, there are open auditions at the Linkfield Playhouse for their new play, November 8th and 9th, which needs 4 female characters as the primary leads, 2 that could be like late 20s and 2 in their like late 40s-ish is their target that they're looking for. So there's more details for that on the Linkfield Playhouse's Facebook page.
Okay.
So if you're interested in that, we also have some films that are coming to town soon, and there will be auditions for local casting for that next year. So I'll have more announcements about that soon. And next week, there's a world premiere of a film that was shot here earlier this year. Al Jazeera was out here for a series they call Fault Lines, and they have a film called When the Water Stopped, which is all about the water fights and the irrigation, all that. So that's premiering at 3:30 p.m. next Wednesday on Al Jazeera, and it'll be streaming on the Al Jazeera website as well. They used some of my footage for it, and they interviewed a bunch of people around town for it as well. So, and there's our guest, Jesse. Hello, sir.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi.
Hello.
Impeccable timing. I was just about to show one of your films, and I tested it 5 minutes before I started the meeting, and for some reason it downloaded without any audio. So I'm wondering whether or not we should just skip it.
Which one were you going to show?
I was going to show Shine, and then I was going to show the Frank and Zed trailer, and for some reason both of them downloaded as muted. So maybe we'll just show the Frank and Zed trailer so that people can get a sense of what's going on, and then we just finished introduction and a few announcements, and your timing is great. Let me just bounce down to so as I mentioned, Jesse is a specialist in puppetry, but also a filmmaker. Even though for some reason, and I don't know why, there's not going to be sound on this. Let me.
Here, Kurt.
Okay, can you show it? Okay, can you share it? Because I thought I downloaded it, and I checked it right before I launched the meeting. I was like, why is nothing playing? So
I can.
Here's a film, Shine, that Jesse made.
I mean, without the sound, it's
Yeah, sorry. But anyway, there's puppets. It's a barbershop quartet, and then all of them get slaughtered one by one.
Well, let's try it without sound.
Yeah. Okay, do you just
works, folks.
Do you want to make sound effects while this goes, Jesse?
No, let's just see it. It's a silent era. I'll be quiet.
Okay.
I feel like the background.
Yeah, we've got the Animals House of the Rising Sun playing in the background here, which
Okay, I hear something. Okay, so right now these guys are singing. I'll try it. This is okay. Shine on me, shine on me, shine on me in the morning, shine on me. I wander in the lighthouse. Uh-oh.
puppetry with a lot of blood.
Mary's not into it.
Yeah.
Did you base these character designs on any real people?
No, but we named them after real people. So now they're all saying, oh no, oh no, oh no. They're singing again. Shine on me in the morning, shine on me. I wonder when the lighthouse. This guy's losing some blood though, so he goes down. Uh-oh, boom. The song is quieter, so the light comes in, boom. Me.
Whoever did the VO on this was really impressive because he held that note for at least 30 seconds.
Yeah, so yeah, if you watch it with sound, there's one guy who does all the yeah, it's really it doesn't really work without music. It's just really, I mean, it's all based on the song. So
I'm sorry, Jesse. I should have checked that earlier. I checked it right before the meeting.
It's I completely understand.
Yeah.
So it's I, as someone who lives in technical hell, I have the merit badge. I've been through it. So I'm exporting now. I'm in technical hell a bit right now. So I'm working on an export. So I totally get it. Don't worry about it.
Well, how we got to know Jesse first was for our 2020 Klamath Independent Film Festival. He submitted a film that he spent 7 years making in his garage called Frank and Zed. Here are some behind the scenes photos. Sorry for those of you here in person, it's small because the TV took a shot on the drive over, so it's toast. But some behind the scenes photos there of the making of this film in Jesse's garage there, and a little bit more of some of the puppet work. But essentially the film is a buddy comedy about a Frankenstein and a zombie that is, to me at least, it comes across as a loving homage to the 30s and 40s Universal horror films, Frankenstein, Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, all those films, but done in almost a parody way like Young Frankenstein was done, but then entirely with puppets. So think if like the Dark Crystal made Young Frankenstein, and you would get the insanity that is his film Frank and Zed. That's awesome. Now, we loved Frank and Zed to the point where Frank and Zed actually won our award for Best Northern Feature Film for 2020. And there's his trophy right there.
Got it right here.
Oh, nice.
I'm glad to see that you still have it, that the kid destroyed it or anything like that.
I don't think my child could destroy this. This is one solidly built trophy. So
yeah, you could definitely bludgeon someone with your trophy.
So meaningless trivia. My daughter actually, I have one of my prized possessions is a trophy a friend of mine won in middle school that I've just kept for forever. And it's just like a little trophy, and she loves that thing. So that's the sacred object on many kind of story quests that we go through. So not that anyone cares, but there's another trophy in the house that also has a lot of meaning.
So his film won, but through kind of a fluke of timing, we actually weren't able to show his film at our festival. We were going to be the world premiere of it, and he had the opportunity to be at a much larger festival. And so rolled the dice on that, and it just didn't work out, but we still gave him the award for it. And we've been talking for at least a year now about at some point, Jesse will come down and we'll do a screening of it. Maybe on like a Friday the 13th, we can figure out a day to do it when it would be appropriate. We're in town, we can do a special screening of Frank and Zed. So I wanted to show, and again, it won't have sound, but
I mean, Kurt, can you not play it off the internet or something with sound?
You know, I will say that the film Shine that we just watched is available on YouTube, and the trailer is also available on YouTube for Frank and Zed. So let me show you real quick the silent version of the trailer for Frank and Zed, so you can get a sense of this film that we're talking about, even though you won't get sound on it.
Yeah.
Those character designs are so great. And I love the fact that all the blood and guts in the film is like cotton that's like flying everywhere.
Oh, that's so clever.
And this was all done entirely in your garage, right?
It was done across several spaces, but yeah, it started in a little 300 square foot garage. And then we had kind of a bigger space that we rented for about 7 months. And then I'm in a studio that I built behind my house that we did all the miniature work and stuff like that in, and a lot of the insert shots. So it was done across a bunch of different spaces.
So this film starts out as almost like a buddy comedy of a Frankenstein and a zombie, where their master has died and they're relying on each other to survive, and they rely on killing a bunch of villagers in order to survive. And eventually it turns into a massive chaotic, where the villagers come with pitchforks and torches to take them down for good. I don't know, do you want to give a better description than I probably can of your incredible film?
I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay.
There's this couple, these guys, they're falling apart, and they're just trying to live their little monster life, and the pesky humans just want to kill them, you know. And so, big surprise, pesky humans come, and Frankenstein do their best to stay alive and live to die another day.
Well, so that you get a sense of who we all are, maybe we should just go through a very, very abridged intros for you. So obviously, you know me, I'm Kurt Lick, even though you can't really see me because it's getting dark here. Filmmaker as well as drone pilot. Wayne Sweat, up there in the corner. Wayne is an actor, local actor and film producer. Joyce Dickens and Howard Stapleton together up on the screen there. They are photographers. Mary Jane Hillier is one of our big supporters and a huge film fan, and a recent children's book author.
Congratulations.
I
have some books I want to write. Like my daughter, we've been talking about writing some books. Like she's always roping me into, well, not roping me in, but we tell like a lot of stories. And there's these two sugar gliders, Salt and Pepper, and they start the story, and it's our Salt and Pepper are they gonna be rewarded, or are they gonna get in real big trouble? And that's like always the setup. So I would love to talk to you, Mary, about. Anyways, I've been
Cool.
It's super fun. They're one of my favorite stories. They go to meet Santa at the mall, and Santa has a try and sneak it and get stuck to Santa's beard, and then they get scared and they run away, and they end up flying all around the mall with Santa's beard. It's like a real fun story. Anyways, all right, sorry to jump in.
Cool.
The other two folks on the online side, Court Canick is our vice chair of Klamath Film, and he is also a filmmaker and teaches astronomy at the college that I work at.
Cool.
I recently got hired as a videographer at Klamath Community College, so I'm getting. Hey, here's a shocker. I'm getting paid to make films. I mean, that's stunning, right? And Lori Nussbaum is a longtime Klamath Film member, volunteers at just about every one of our events, former board member, filmmaker as well. She's had one film in our film festivals before. And so Lori helps out immensely and is usually here. Cassidy over here is a filmmaker who recently moved to the Klamath Basin and specializes in environmental documentary work, right?
Yeah, cool.
And Jeffrey back here is also a filmmaker who actually joined us today for the first time. So thank you for doing that. And Bowen stepped away a second. I think he's getting food, but he's a recent Oregon Tech grad and an aspiring actor who's with us. And Kat Clark behind me, who you also can't see because it's so dark here, is an actress who recently, well, the film isn't done yet, but appeared in a film that was shot here earlier this year called The Private Dance, that acted in that. So that was the fourth film that was shot in the Klamath Basin. We've had 5 that have been shot here this year, which is a record for us. We've never had films here. So that's our eclectic group, and I want to, of course, open it up to questions for anyone who wants to talk about puppetry and whatnot. But first, Jesse, let's get to know a little bit more about you. I know you're based up in the Portland area, but how did you get into filmmaking?
I'm gonna be a wily guest here, and I just spent an hour talking to a good friend from Klamath Falls. I don't know if any of you happen to know Breeze Pickle. He's been in New York for the last 10 years, so he's a very good friend of mine. And I asked him, I was like, all right, I'm going to be talking with Klamath tonight. So who should I give a shout out to? So this is who Breeze told me to give a shout out to. He said the Ross Raglan Theater, the KU Theater Department, and the KU men's tennis team. So anyways, you have a fellow Klamath alum in New York who's thinking about you guys.
Great. We actually have a Klamath Union alum who lives in New York who is an Academy Award winner.
Oh, no kidding. Well, it's definitely not my friend Brees.
James Ivory is from Klamath Falls.
Who?
James Ivory.
Oh, James Ivory. No kidding.
Yeah.
Ivory and Merchant or what? No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I love Howard's End.
Yeah. Howard's End, and he won the Academy Award a couple of years ago for the screenplay for Call Me by Your Name.
No kidding.
We also have another guy who, not quite New York, he's based in Vermont, but Bergen Swanson is from here. Anyone who, if you're driving around the fairgrounds and you head down Altamont, like you're going to head towards Mazama, you pass by an old boarded up shop that says Yankee Peddler on the outside. That was the bike shop that Bergen and his dad used to run. Bergen went from repairing bikes to producing films. He's now produced over 40 feature films. He's currently working with Zack Snyder on his next film. He's worked on films like 3 Billboards Outside of Missouri, Wild, Shame, Widows. He was the executive producer of the Mr. Rogers Tom Hanks film, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. So Bergen is super nice guy, and he continues to help out our organization. He is a member of our organization as well. And he grew up locally, went to Mazama and repaired bicycles, and somehow went from repairing bikes to being a line producer and then an executive producer.
So cool. Well, I'm really glad. I'm glad my buddy Brees did some shout outs so I could learn all that cool stuff about Klamath. That's so fun.
So you, Jesse, how did you get into filmmaking, and what made you get into puppetry specifically?
I grew up doing theater, and in college was like, I'll never make money doing theater, so I'm going to do film instead, and that typical kind of young hubris, and ended up not making film either. And 10 years, and then they always just kind of fell apart at the end, and it was mainly because like I put all this work and all the prep and all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't paying everybody. So I'd have like sometimes like the actors would just not come the next day. I'm like, what do you do? Like have any leverage. So one day I was like, what if I was going to make this monster movie, and I knew the monster would be a puppet, just cause not like a puppet, like Jaws is a puppet, I was going to try and make the monster look really cool, but it'd be this big physical thing. And then I was like, well, what if everybody was a puppet? And that was like this really kind of stupid but exciting idea. So I was like, let's try it. So I made Shine. So the barbershop silent film that you saw, I made that, and it was like a lot of fun. And so I made like another little short film and also had a good time. And then I was like, all right, let's do something bigger. And so that was when I jumped into Frank and Zed, and Frank and Zed ended up being a lot bigger.
Well, it was almost 6-7 years of work to complete the film.
Yeah, Facebook just was like, hey, here's this photo from a long time ago, and so there was actually it looks like I first got the idea in about 2012. And then we spent about, then it was, I could show you the puppets here. I think I got, here we go. So here's Frank. Hi, Klamath.
Oh my gosh.
Let's see. Oh, hi, Klamath. So spent we spent a full year making these guys because, like, I don't know if you can see it on there, but we do all the veins and the eyeballs and stuff. And then, building all the mechanisms to make these guys talk. There we go. So now you can see the eye move. That kind of stuff. And it's just incredibly complex to make, because a lot of the things, like, for instance, this is a hard surface, this eye, and the underskull, which you typically wouldn't see, like on this eye, you can't see the underskull. Well, in this sculpt, the underskull is actually part of the puppet. So making a round sphere that's going to rotate inside a hard socket is very hard. And then the eyes, like, a mistake we made is the eyes are actually anatomically correct in that there's actually a bulge on the cornea, which is not good because then they're asymmetrical. So making a move becomes like a bigger challenge. But you're not going to remake the eye. It takes way too much work. So, we spent a full year kind of just sculpting and making the puppets. So this is Frank here, and I can show you Zed. And then anyway, so after we made the puppets, we did a trailer that was like a proof of concept. And then we used that to raise some money on Kickstarter.
Yeah, so this was a totally independent film done with no studio support of any kind. So that's part why it took 7 years to do, right?
Yeah. Dead.
Love the teeth.
Yeah.
What are your favorite details of each puppet?
So one of my favorite details on Zed is the teeth, because on the film, I was like, I want to push the design. We're not making any money. So what are we doing? I want to push the design as far as we can. We should be uncomfortable all the time, because my thought is, I was like, if we push it to the place where we're uncomfortable, the audience won't even notice. And so the teeth are actually a great example. If you look at his teeth, they're almost half of his head, There's so much. And when we first did the sculpt, I was like, oh my God, they're too big. I'm uncomfortable. So it's yes, and then one of the things I did is I'm always looking for ways to add extra life to it. So his teeth, to really put him on takes a little bit. So I'm just gonna do kind of a crappy version of it. But anyways, so his teeth are all individually elastic, so that they can move. I don't know if you can see that there. There we go. So when he's chewing, his teeth move around. So he really put this to like use. So anyways, so I really love his teeth because they're a big part of his character. They're a place where we push the design too far, with the point of discovering that you can't. Like people want, the camera turns down the volume on everything. It really, it makes, like, whatever you do for the camera, whatever you see in real life is a million times bigger. It's like when you take a photo of the moon with your phone, right? And it looks like amazing to your eyes, but when then you look at this photo on your phone, it just looks silly. Like, I'm sure, like, that bar, like, if we're looking at the outside or the inside of that bar, right? Like, it just turns the volume way down. So with everything in Frank and Zed, it's like, okay, the volume has to be of the design. By volume, I mean how crazy it is. It's got to be way, way, way too much.
It needs to be noise.
Yeah.
If there's one way to describe Frank and Zed, I would say over the top. So for sure.
This is one of the fish.
Yeah.
So you see this guy for maybe 6 seconds. And then so what we did so it's like you're moving as fast as you can, and you're as lazy as you can, right? Believe it or not, you're like, how can I do this the laziest way possible? So like with him, right, we're only gonna see him for 6 seconds, right? So we're gonna see him for about this, right? So we don't see the side of his face, so we don't paint or really even sculpt it. He doesn't have an eye, like you don't do the back, because that's how we can do it faster. So you get to see a little bit of that. And then this is actually, his body is made of a garbage bag. So this is a garbage bag that we stretch and manipulate to bring to life. So I mean, a lot of the film is like literally made of garbage, and I did that, you know, because you save material. But like, so this is Frank's heart here. It's also like mostly made of garbage. So you see it here when it's in the film. This is really annoying. Let me see if I can get some light.
I'm curious about how long did you spend, how much time did it take concept and to build that fish that was in the frame for 6 seconds?
So we spent maybe, so let's see, the fish, we probably spend like maybe 2 days or so on it. I mean, because you're going like, so there's like the fish. So this is it's fabricated, right? So when you fabricate something, you're just sculpting it and there's only one of them. And so you can move kind of faster, right? Versus something like this. So this is the brain. The brain like this, you make a sculpt and then you make a mold of it and then you cast and you can make multiples, you know, so that's a bit of the strategy. But yeah, so that, I'd say we probably spent 2 days on him, and there's 2 fish. And then there's other things like, you know, this is like a hero. This actually got cut from the film. This isn't in the film. Oh man, this bad lighting is really annoying.
Hey, Jesse, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's really curious about how exactly you got into designing puppetry, if this was something you'd done in school or in theater and it translated over, or if this is just a natural skill or just, you know, trial and error. How did, because these designs are absolutely amazing. How did you end up doing all of this work?
I'm all self-taught. So it's 100% self-taught. And that's like, you know, and I found like, I never thought of myself as being like a designer, you know, and I should clarify, like I work with a team to do like sculpting and painting, you know, so there's a lot that I did. There's things that I did completely on my own, like Frank's heart, I did completely on my own. And then there's other things that I like did, like this sculpt I did as a director, where I'm working with Aaron DeBray as the sculptor, and I'm really telling him like, no, that doesn't work. Do it this way. No, do it this way. You know what, guys, I can actually show you a sneak peek at the sculpt for my next film.
Oh, we'll be able to see it in 2035.
Well, that's I want to move a lot faster, right? 6 years, it takes too long. I'll never be able to tell the stories I want, and I'll never be able to support myself. I'll be stuck. Like today, I spent half of my day paying the bills, and I couldn't. Like I'm working on writing, and I had to stop writing to pay the bills. So yeah. So the next film is going to be one massive puppet, and then everything else is going to be live action, and it takes place in a small town in Southern Oregon. Maybe Klamath. I've been writing it for Roseburg, but I mean maybe Klamath could be the joint for it.
He's a live actor.
Yeah, there we go. And anyway, so it's going to be starring one massive monster. Here, I'll show you. Hold on.
Yeah. The painted glass in the background, by the way, is also from the film. That's a set backdrop.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. This is from the back. So here, this is a maquette. So this is like an early sculpt of a character that'll be in the next film. And one of the things we're working on now is figuring out the horns. So this is the horns. So he has these really super curly horns. Well, can't really get it on here. Let's see. Here we go.
So Jesse, I do actually have a question.
Sure. Yeah, what's your question?
Basically, well, I mean, it's more of like an observation, really. So aside from the sculpting and the molding and making multiples, you're telling me that you can make a puppet out of anything?
Oh yeah.
Garbage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some garbage here, or I have, excuse me. Here we go. Here's a puppet that is in the film.
Yeah, I never got like a sock or a brown paper bag as far as my puppetry. So this is really impressive.
This is a puppet that is in the film that is made out of a diaper box and some wire. So this is a shadow puppet, right?
Oh, okay.
So there's in the film there are these weapons that become cursed, right? And so I don't know if I could do it now. So basically, you see the shadow and you see this, and the shadow on the wall grows these horns like this. And when it's done at the same time and kind of comes up, you know, so it's coming like, so it'll come like this, I think, and these come up. It looks really, I wonder if I can, stupid light works with me. Anyway, so this is like in the film, and it is clearly garbage. You know, you can tell how old my daughter was because she was wearing giant Pampers baby onlys. So yeah, so but it was also, you know, a big part of the world was like saying like, okay, we're gonna make stuff out of garbage. So actually a bunch of this is garbage. All the wood here is garbage. Like literally my neighbor's fence behind the house fell over.
Wow.
And so I was like, hey, can I have that wood? And he's like, of course, you crazy person. And so the wood, it's like really aged. I mean, it's been out there so long, it's fallen over. So in making Frank and Zed, when you know, so there's garbage like this, which is just around. So you don't have to go anywhere. So you can move faster. It's there so you can make it, right? Garbage like this gives you all this free texture, right? This gives you a ton of production value. Because if I make a sculpt like this guy, I have to add all of this texture by hand. I gotta dot, 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 right? If I get stuff like let's see. If I get some stuff like this, you know, like this is nature.
Yeah.
Right. So this detail is a bit, there's a tree that sheds this incredible bark that looks like, I don't know, like dragon scales or something like that. So I grabbed a bunch of this bark, which, you know, it's not garbage, but it's kind of garbage, right? You know, it's similar to garbage. You get all that stuff and you can create this really rich world. Use found objects. If I was to use found objects, it pushes the aesthetic somewhere, right? If you just use what's in your head, you're regurgitating what you've seen in other films. You're taking Game of Thrones and Dark Crystal, which I'm doing anyways, of course. But if I have to use what's in the world around me, if I have to react, that influences the film. And that allows me to deliver something different to the audience, you know? So
to understand the process, there's garbage and then garbage right the window.
yeah. It's just like, it's very reactive. It's very reactive. Like, what can I find? What can I find? What can I find? And how can I use that to take? Because I always think like whatever idea I have in my head is just a cliche. I may not be aware of it, right? But it's cliche. It's boring. How do I get beyond what is in my head? That's where something is interesting, right? And so yeah, using the found objects becomes using found objects, and then I'm also using a process that's really restrictive. You know, one of the other things that's really scary and also exciting about, you know, a lot of the stuff on Frank and Zed is the amount of the material you have is very limited. Like this, so this window is made of scraps of a certain kind of plastic that I got. Well, I only had X number of scraps. So it's like, okay, these are the shapes and the scraps. I have to figure out how the window is made from these pieces, you know? And so that's the other thing that really ends up influencing like how you're doing stuff.
Okay. Jesse, let's talk about
it is, as a viewer, a spectator, you wouldn't know that it's garbage. You know, when you see the film, it's this wonderful creation, and can't imagine that you know might have come out of somebody's backyard.
Yeah, well, and that's part of the fun is like this garbage becomes precious. That's part of what I love about it, right?
That's treasure.
Yeah, so here, hold on. I mean, I'll do a bunch of show and tell.
You know what? While Jesse's grabbing that, I should say he started a company called Puppet Core, which is done Frank and Zed and Shine, but he also does a lot of commercial work. And I assume that's what he meant when he said paying the bills, is doing commercial work around Portland. But this is his creative outlet, is Puppet Core, creating Frank and Zed and all that. Frank and Zed has been making the rounds at festivals, specializing in horror festivals in particular. Every review that I have seen have just raved about your film, Jesse. So I don't know why this film isn't like being released nationally to theaters now, because it's so inventive, it's so different, it's so unique, and everyone who has had a chance to see it. In fact, Jesse, I will say, ever since the 2020 film festival, we had a member who every single time I saw him around town, or every single time we had a meeting, David would ask me, when can I see Frank and Zed? Without fail. David unfortunately passed away a day before our film festival this year, and so he never got to see Frank and Zed. But I am reminded, because every time we have a Klamath Film meeting, my thought is David's going to show up, and the first thing he's going to ask is, have you talked to Jesse yet about when we can show Frank and Zed in Klamath? Because he saw the trailer a bunch of times. He's like, I have to see this film. I must see this film. It's unlike anything.
Man, that's such a like bittersweet story, of course, and I think that's, I mean, not to get too philosophical, but like that's life, right? I only came to puppets because of obstacles. Right? All of these obstacles happen. And then like, I'm hearing about David because of this obstacle of not being able to show it at Klamath. And then of course, unfortunately, David didn't get a chance to see it, and I think that's really, that's really sweet. And also, I mean, part of what's been really fun about this project and really interesting is trying to embrace the chaos, so for instance, being on this meeting with you guys, is because of all of the crazy permutations of life that made kind of bringing us together, happen now, and I think that's where I'm at with the film too, is like, yeah, a lot of people really like it. And in terms of distribution and bigger people seeing it, what's happening is that a lot of people see it as a very niche film. And when they don't know anything about it, they're like, oh my, like a only puppet horror film. And I think after people see the film, they're like, oh, this is actually just a lot of fun. It's actually more accessible because it's bloody, it's scary, but it actually ends up being more like Gremlins, I think, than some film that no one's ever seen. So yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I'm very excited. I mean, I am bummed in some ways that it didn't play in 2020, but I always had really a lot of reservations because I was like, I don't think I'll be able to I wouldn't be able to attend. I couldn't bring any puppets, it would like, so I think, I'm excited to come down and like really make it up to everybody. We could dedicate the screening to David. I think that sounds like a great idea, and really have like a lot of fun and kind of, and really make it up to you guys. Cause I do feel it was really frustrating to not be part of the screening, but I'm excited to actually be there this time.
So maybe you can give us an update of where the film stands, because this is a great learning lesson for filmmakers, because a lot of people on the outside think that you make the film and when you're done editing, the film is done. But in reality, that's really just the beginning of the process. If you have aspirations for public to see your film, there's a matter of finding distribution or getting it out into festivals, taking it on the road if need be. A lot of politics involved of trying to sell your film to a distributor or a studio to pick it up with things like Fox Searchlight. It can be an arduous process. Sometimes it can take years before a film gets national release, if it does at all. So what can you kind of take us through some of the process of what's been going on since you finished the film and kind of where things stand now as far as trying to get this film out into the public?
Yeah, so yeah, how you get a film out is really pretty complicated. And one of the things that I'm finding is a lot of it's very relationship driven. It's really it really is in a lot of ways who you know. And for a long time that frustrated me, you know. But now, having made a film on my own, it's really opened a lot of doors. And I think that that's where my thinking has really evolved on stuff, and kind of said like, oh, and if you do work, you get to know people. That's what people don't really say as much. It's like, yeah, it's who you know, but don't worry about getting to know people. Worry about doing stuff. And then people like Kurt will be like, hey, I want to introduce you to people. And you get to meet other people, you know? And so that's what's tricky about Frank and Zed, is it's my very first film that a lot of people like. So there's a lot of possibility, but, and it's introducing me to a lot of people, but I haven't known all the levers and things like that. So for instance, like where the film premieres is a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. So where Frank and Zed premiered, you know, we got written up at the Hollywood Reporter and IndieWire, and just a lot of really big places. You know, Roger Ebert reviewed us, et cetera. And that, you know, that, so unfortunately, you know, playing at Klamath, which I would have loved to do, you know, but you're not, the Hollywood Reporter is far less likely to give us coverage there. And the Hollywood Reporter is how I got some people from Hollywood who I'm talking to about my next film. So that's a big part of the game that's really, really tricky. I didn't know any of that stuff. And so trying to also just figure that stuff out for the first time. So anyways, where it is now is we're talking to a bunch of people. There's a lot of like really exciting conversations. So for instance, like Elijah Wood tweeted about the film yesterday. So that's pretty cool. Another guy, Macon Blair, who is a director that I absolutely love. He tweeted about the film. And so, you know, some of those kind of little things, exciting things are happening. And part of the game is saying like, okay, how much work do you put into keeping the momentum going and yelling and trying to talk about Frank and Zed, and how much do you put into the next project? And that's, you know, so there's lots of exciting conversations that I'm having with places and things that something might happen, or it might all fall apart. You know, you just don't know. And there's a lot of big promises, but then they come and then they go. And so it's a long way of saying like, I mean, I think it's like, it's half advice saying like, if you want to do something, go out there and do it. And I would start thinking about like, one of the things I regret is that I was not at all strategic with how I released any of my short films. I just put it in the first film festival. And then I went back, and it was only later that I realized like where a film premieres is like a big deal. And then even with the festivals, anyway, so the advice is like, if you're looking to do stuff, like go out there and do it so they learn, make your mistakes. You got to make mistakes and you got to build relationships. And Frank and Zed has been in kind of the half and half place. Like I've made a bunch of shorts, so I kind of knew what I was doing there. And I got some good relationships, which really, really helped. And I got some really bad advice, which really didn't help. But now I know a lot more, you know? So like one of the things, for instance, is like to get into a big film festival, like one of the, like Sundance, you know, these film festivals, they only program like less than 1/3 of 1% of the submissions. I mean, that means you could have a 99.6% film and not get in. You know, it's really kind of relationship driven and those kinds of things. A lot of my favorite filmmakers I've since discovered, it's their second or their third film that gets into Sundance. It's unlikely to be the first, you know? And so part of that is forming the relationships. And also the community starts to say like, oh, I'm excited about this film because I know something else that this person has done. Like I'm dying to see Last Night in Soho because I love Edgar Wright. That's going to get my butt to the theater, you know? And film festivals are the same thing. So part of where I'm at with Frank and Zed is being both excited and trying to push that it'll get, like we have some people that I can't say names, but we have some people that said, hey, we'll put it out on these kinds of platforms. You know, we'll put it out here and here and here. Is it the right fit? I don't know, you know? And so trying to kind of find the right fit, but and trying to do a dance between how long do you wait for what feels right? And how long are you just stalling, you know? And, you know, and then of course, and then you have things like COVID, like, are we all going to get a redo after COVID? Like, is there going to be, who knows? And I think too, you find that everyone else that you're talking to, these gatekeepers, they're all making it up too. They don't know either, right? That's the thing. It's like they're just trying to put butts in seats, just like you. It's all entertainment, right? Can you deliver value? Can you deliver the value? Like nobody actually cares. Like if it had screened at Klamath, nobody would care. That's what's so frustrating. Nobody would actually, I mean, you guys would care. I mean, you know what I mean? But anybody who watched it at a quote unquote world premiere, they don't care. Like it's the same film, but people pulling levers and people trying to make noise want to say like, oh, it's the first time you get to see this thing. That's doesn't change the film, but it changes people's perception of the film. So anyways, you kind of learn that like, there's no rules. Everyone's making it up. What are you making it up? How can you make it exciting? And part of it is kind of coming back and going like, it's all entertainment. That's the big secret, right?
About the presentation.
Yeah, it's all like, it's the exact same thing as me like telling a story to my daughter. It's no different. How do you pull them in? Is it fun?
Enthusiasm.
And
when you look at the movies with the biggest budgets out there, like Marvel Entertainment, Disney movies, they spend an enormous amount of time traveling around the world marketing their movies after they film, There's got to be some kind of formula to that success.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, they're like the marketing of the movie is that's a whole thing in of itself, because like for instance, you take a film like Frank and Zed, and this is really kind of fascinating, is like you look at a trailer and you realize that like the trailer's job is to say, here's the emotional experience you're going to get. Would you like it? So people complain about having the film spoiled, and I'm with them too. I try, if there's a film I love, like for instance, Last Night in Soho, I don't watch any of the trailers. I'm like, no, I won't watch anything. I want to go in totally blind, right? But for most films, you're saying like, here's your 90 minutes. Well, here's the emotional drug you're going to get. Here's the tasting menu, right? Of the experience. And so like with Frank and Zed, for instance, it's a real heartfelt film. It's a real touching, there's no cussing. It's a real lovey-dovey film that's just full of blood and guts, so you have to figure out, how do you present that?
To me, Jesse, I would say your film will have a following someday in the midnight movie culture, because this film fits so perfectly in with the cult following of films like Rocky Horror and Eraserhead and Pink Flamingos, where people will show up at the theater at like 10, 11 o'clock at night for that late showing in costume.
And then
They'll throw things in the crowd. They'll shout back at the screen. It has that kind of vibe where, maybe it's not necessarily a mainstream all audiences film, but it has that uniqueness that makes it stand out, that people, when they see it, they're like, this is totally my vibe, especially around like Halloween. Like, look how celebrated films like Nightmare Before Christmas is celebrated. Now, they just had a massive concert at the Hollywood Bowl. You're doing all the songs with superstars when that film really was not a hit when it came out.
Yeah, I hope, I hope people like it. I mean, one of the things that I think that's been a big comfort to me is, if you want to make the world's like most widely consumed hamburger, you make a Big Mac, and I'm not interested in making Big Macs. Like that's not the goal, right? So I'm like even in making this film in terms of the horror niche, it's a loving film. It's a film about love and friendship in the horror genre. I like horror, but so much of horror these days feels very nihilistic, is very bleak, and there's a whole genre that I think is accurately described as terror. Horror is just such it's so broad, it's almost pointless as a label, So like with this film, it's like, there's a warmth to it that's really important to me, and that's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie made with dolls. That's not for everybody. Frank and Zed don't talk. There's a lot of people who are like, this is so fucking boring. Pardon my French. And that's fine, because hopefully the people who like it are like, oh man, this is like, I don't get this somewhere else. So this is more special. It's more interesting. Or, and that's even like part of the platform thing. It's like, yeah, I wanted to play on a big platform and that would be great. But the price you pay for that accessibility is it's less special in a certain way. Like you get across to more people, but it's less, you know, because again, just like the film, the effort of seeing it changes the value. You know, like if David got to see it, think of what an experience he would have had. Like, oh man, I've been waiting to see this film and waiting to see it. And then Jesse came down, I got to see it with him, and that was amazing. You know, it didn't work out. That sucks. But it's still, you know, that's a whole story that makes for a much richer experience, you know.
Well, I want to make sure that others get a chance to ask questions, so it's not just me talking back and forth. So for those who maybe haven't had a chance to talk yet, do you have a question for Jesse here? Or?
I
Oh, okay. Or Cassidy, or wherever Jeffrey went, or anyone who's online, if there's something you want to talk to Jesse about specifically.
So it's really interesting kind of being exposed to this as a medium. It's really the first time I've thought about it. It's really interesting, and I'd say it's really unique and creative, and that's a really great thing to add just film in general. Although has taking on these projects and getting into this medium, has it opened up your perspective to other alternative mediums for film?
Yeah, it's actually opened up my yes, that's a great question. Thank you. It's actually opened up my perspective more to like telling, because I'm like, all right, everybody's in front of their TV, so I don't want to compete with that. Get them out. Let's tell stories in other places, you know? So like, for instance, like I really want to do a play and I want to make like the world's scariest play. I want to make a play that's terrifying, that is so scary, and it's just a play, and you see all the effects and everything's like on stage. And I also don't want to just do this play at the theater. I want to do it like in a parking garage or something like that. I mean, I think that's what it's opened my perspective more to, is like, if you want to do something, you can do it, and there's no rules, you know. And also kind of saying like, Frank and Zed stands out because I didn't have resources, and so how do you adapt to not having something? Like, what do you do with nothing? You know, restriction is a blessing. You know, I heard someone say like one of the reasons that American food is not frequently known for innovation is we just have so much of everything. So you just always get the steak, right? It's when you don't have a lot of everything that you're working with, you know, head cheese and other kinds of like interesting stuff. And so anyway, so that's more what I'm thinking now. So for instance, like this film, The Grew, that I'm working on now, the monster is going to be, you know, it's like 250 years old in the story. It's like very, very old. And I want to do a VR component where you'll be able to actually go and see this museum place where this animal is. And you can kind of walk around and kind of discover like what century you're in. With who's in it. And I want to do that all with virtual reality. But then I also want to make a massive life-size puppet that's like 20 feet tall and take it through the streets so that you really have this like direct connection, you know, direct kind of fantastic connection. So anyway, so I would say that's what it's more opened my mind to, is like, why do just 2D films, like traditional films? Like everyone is doing that. Who cares? Like everyone's going to do that. And that space is being so exhaustively covered. And all you got to do is just go over here, and then no one's doing, or not no one, but you might be able to do something more interesting.
Like War of the Worlds all over again, you know. This time it's a 20-foot monster walking down Main Street, people running terrified.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that like more exciting? It's like way more.
It'll make YouTube, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Who cares? And then, or just make another film that's like every other film, you know. So, anyway, so what I'm saying though is like I'll have the film, The Grew, but then I want a play of it, and the play actually has a different narrative. That's like so it's like, oh, here's the same ingredients, but this is a different story. And part of the point of that is to say that like there's not one thing, like the rules are all made up. Then you actually take the animal out, and then you have this virtual reality experience. And so instead of just fetishizing a process, because that's what I think a lot of people get caught up in, you also say like, no, we can use technology, and what can we do? What does the technology provide that we can't do other places? You know, so, but yeah, those are some of the things that I'm excited about.
It's funny, the first feature film I was in, there was in the theme, there was a demon that had got released, and it was sending a plague out into the world. And one shot of the film, we had people that were laying out on Main Street that were plague victims and playing like they're dead. We had people coming out from the stores on a Saturday and not knowing what's going on, and just freaked out because of these people, these dead people laying on the road. And so, yeah, I can imagine, if you got a 20-foot monster walking downtown Portland, yeah, that'll get some attention.
Yeah, and those people will remember it. Like, I mean, I bet, and that's a good example. Like when I was talking about how the
the year Portland has happened, it might just be another day.
Well, when I was talking about how the camera turns the volume down, right? So Wayne, so all the people that walked out, they had a real visceral experience, and they probably tell that story. You tell that story. How many people are talking about a movie they saw the same way? Probably not, right? And so I think, yeah, you're right. Like, and that's becomes part of the game. Like, well, how can we maybe deliver some of that experience, to people? And that sounds fun. It sounds exciting.
I want to make sure that those who haven't had a chance to ask a question yet can chime in. So maybe Lori or Mary Jane or Joyce or Howard or Court or Cassidy or Jeffrey. Any of you have a question for Jesse?
Hey, this is Court. I got a question. Hope it's not technical, but I was noticing, particularly with the trailer for Frank and Zed, there's a lot of camera movement.
Yeah.
And and there's a style of puppetry where you basically have a static proscenium, and so nothing is drawing attention away from the puppetry, but your thing is much more cinematic because you've got all this flexibility and movement that's adding to the story. And I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on why you did it that way.
Court, you asked me such an exciting question, because that is a big deal to me, and one of the things that I'm so proud of, and in making Frank and Zed, so I wrote the story completely ignoring that it's puppets, completely ignoring the resources. So there's a massive, castle, but there's also a forest. I was like, I got to make a real forest. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but the big part of it was I want a real rich experience, and I want to carry the audience around, and it's got to be a world, right? And I don't want people to subconsciously start to see where the set ends because the camera go, whoa, so you're 100% right. And the film is done in a very classic style where it's you see this and then you see that, where it's the camera is really very actively telling the story and connecting the dots. And to use your word, cinematic, the goal. So, that's a big deal because, with puppets, they don't have legs, right? They don't have legs, so they end. And then even controlling them, and part of the cinematic experience, I want the story to be real, I want the characters to be real. So we never see the puppeteers. Everything is hidden, and we're doing it to the best of our ability, all practically. And the camera movement is a really absolutely critical tool to take people on that journey and to help bring it to life, because it's all an illusion. With puppets, it's the background is fake, and the characters are fake, and everything they're doing is essentially a special effect. They can't pick anything up. We spent 6 hours once trying to get Frank to take something from one hand and put it in the other hand.
Oh,
right?
Why?
That was just doing that, because he's doing that, and keep in mind that even where they look, if I'm talking to you and I'm hey, Court, what a great question. I assume it looks really stupid, right? Getting the eye lines, just getting the characters to look at each other is almost impossible.
That had to be really complex, not to give away too much, but there's a big giant battle where there's tons of puppets on screen at once. So did you have 10, 15 people squirming on the floor, all with their arms up, trying to wriggle over each other to still have their puppet up? How do you maneuver that behind the scenes?
Yeah. So we have scenes where there'd be as many as 15 people all holding puppets, many of them holding two, and they can't see what they're doing. They're so close, they have no idea what they're doing. So if these are the eyes, a lot of times they're just holding their puppets, or their hands are getting tired, so they do this or this or this. And I'm screaming at them, at their character, like look up, left, right, trying to get just the eyes of 15 people. So you don't have a whole crowd like looking all over the place. It seems like they're all looking at Frank. And that's one of the reasons that this film is so challenging is like, if this film was made in a traditional puppet platform, there would be these big trenches so everyone can stand. So they're really close to each other. They can walk, they can do all that stuff. And they're also, their hand is up here, which is just more comfortable. We couldn't do any of that, and then they're all looking at monitors so they can see just for themselves and they correct. We don't have any of that. It's a concrete floor, people on their butts, squished on top of each other and just getting tired. That's the other thing that happens is like, you can't hold your hand up that long. You can't do 8 hours. You can't hold your hand up for 8 hours, so it becomes incredible. I mean, that's why we average like something like 11 shots a day, on a really good day. And frequently you'd have a day where you might get only 2 shots because it's just, because you're doing all that just to hit the basics, to actually get something that looks alive and that has a performance that is talking, that, that actually is worth watching. That is like miles away from just that starting point.
Wow. Well, is it all practical? You don't cheat with any frame animation or anything?
It's about like 98% practical. So there's lightning that's CGI. We did like all practical miniatures, but there's some sky replacement. And then there's like a big storm cloud. The storm cloud I did with what's called a saltwater tank, where you fill a big, So it's a practical way of creating a tank. And those practical elements are then comped together, or things like, so there's things like this fish, this is all practical, but the rod was comped out. So but there's very little of that. There's almost no rod removal of any of the puppet stuff. This is kind of swimming. So it's just that, like, you get into the fetish stuff where I'm just like, we could just comp this out easily, or what? We're gonna have a piece of algae the whole way. Like, that would just look silly. But it's almost all practical. It's very close to almost all practical.
It's interesting too, as technology has advanced in filmmaking, there was a time where hand-drawn animation was king, and now we don't see a whole lot of that anymore. There was a time when puppetry was really common. Of course, Henson Studios kind of took that over and ran with it more than anybody. And now CG has become such the norm where they can create a whole universe within a computer. There's not really anyone doing what you're doing, or very few. So I'm sure people are curious, why go that route outside of just maybe growing up like a mega fan of the Muppets or something? Why you would put yourself through such torture by doing it in that way? Oh, did we?
It was really, at first did you lose me?
Oh no, you're back now.
Yeah. I thought it would be much faster. I thought it would go a lot faster. I thought basically, I think my first thought was like, I'll be able to do stop motion, but faster. And there's kind of some truth to that, in a way. But yeah, it was really just like, I think a lot of it was like, I didn't want to tell stories about like 20 or 30 something people in their garage or their apartment or whatever. Like, that was not a story that I was interested in. Like, I was like, I want to do a barbershop horror film. Like, that's just what I want to do. This was just a way to do it. I really didn't think beyond that. There wasn't a big plan. It was just like, here's a story I want to tell, and this is a way to do it. And I actually thought at the time that there was a ton of puppet films. Puppets are so well known. Wikipedia lists like less than 10 feature-length films that have been made using nothing but puppets. It's crazy. There's very, very few. There's like The Dark Crystal, like, Labyrinth has human actors in it. Like, almost all the Muppet movies have human actors because it's so much easier. Like, even just having one human is like a world easier, right? So, yeah, I didn't really think about it that much, honestly. It was just like, here's a way to do it. Let's get going,
I see so much of The Dark Crystal in your film in terms of the style and approach. So did you grow up just being like a mega fan of like Henson Studios and all of the Muppet work and all that? And did that play a part into you wanting to get into puppetry?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I loved all that stuff. You know, I wouldn't, but I wasn't like a super freak about it or anything. I liked it just as much as I liked everything else. But I mean, yeah, I always thought it was like super cool. Absolutely. You know, and I mean, I think the biggest thing that Henson did was influence like the tone. I mean, I think it actually, like when I talk about this kind of warm tone, I think that's directly from Henson. I think that was ingrained in kind of wanting to have that same kind of level of compassion. I had a different person and it's bloody and it's all that other kind of stuff. So it's a very different take on it. But I think that was a huge influence. And I think the other massive influence from Henson is all of his characters are real. It's never a joke that they're puppets. And that was really important to me. And it's much more work, but there's never a joke in the film that they're puppets. It's like, these are real characters. These are real people. They happen to be puppets, but everything's real. And I think, you know, when you think of Kermit and Miss Piggy and Gonzo and like all those great characters, they're all real, right? They're all like alive, and there's a real dedication to that. And I think that's what the audience wants. I think it's more challenging, but it's so much more rewarding. That's where you have like a real connection, or like a character like Gizmo, you know, aiming for that realness. I mean, I think that was a big part of the legacy of
Yoda.
Your approach is unique in as much that you're environmentally friendly with your characters, because you're repurposing garbage, you know.
Well, you know, that brings up to me Fraggle Rock, which actually had one of the characters that was a giant garbage pile.
Yeah, Madame Trashy. Oh
yeah.
Sesame Street too. I mean, you had to do with the grouchy guy in the garbage can.
Yeah. Grouch.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Jeffrey or Cassidy or Lori, Joyce, and Howard and Mary Jane. I know none of you have had a chance to ask a question yet, and I want to make sure you get a chance to talk if you want to.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start by saying I am terrified of horror films. I have never really watched any of them, and if I see like a scary movie commercial, I like have nightmares for the next 3 nights. But that being said, after like this meeting, I'm super stoked. So just watch Frank and Zed, and just the creativity that you bring to it and kind of that heartwarming aspect is so interesting and so unique. And with that also being, you know, thinking forward to your next film and the ideas that you have for it, it seems like you're just such a creative person and all these ideas that you have. How did you pick and work for 7 years on Frank and Zed? Like, what was it about the story that like captivated you and like just stuck with that one to keep working towards it? It's just so interesting.
Well, thanks. What a great question. So first of all, I really hope you get a chance to watch Frank and Zed one day, and that it's an introduction to a whole world of interesting films. And I'll send you, if you do watch Frank and Zed and you like a little addiction packet of other horror films that I think you will like. That will kind of we'll bring you in. We'll bring you in. You're gonna love it.
Sounds great.
So maybe we'll do a little festival at Klamath. All right. And but that's a great question about like finishing a thing. That is one of the creative challenges, is staying dedicated to a process. Because I always say that like, when you get a great idea, it's like you've got a bee in your hand and you can't crush the bee and you can't do anything with your hand until you get that bee wherever the hell it needs to go, you know? And so like with a movie like Frank and Zed, that's really what it feels like. You're consumed and tied, and there's all these other beautiful bees and things that you want to keep from stabbing you or stinging you and want to do something with, but you have to finish it, you know? And that discipline is very hard, because in the creative cycle, you know, the traditional creative cycle is like, oh, I have this great idea. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait to do it. Oh my God, it's not really working the way I thought. Oh, it's terrible. I'm a failure. It sucks. Oh wait, maybe it's going to work. Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. I love this idea. It's going to be great. Oh, wait a minute. It's not working. And that's like, that's the process every day, every hour, every month, every year. It's the same. It's on, you know, it's a tessellation or whatever. You know, it's in the micro and it's in the macro. So, and that is, to me, that's an important part of the art. I'm like, I want to be a filmmaker, not to have just made films, right? So part of the art is having the discipline to have a process that will finish the thing. If you don't, and you don't finish your films, you're unlikely to get the resources and connect with people and other things to make another film. So yeah, so that is like very, very difficult. And in terms of Frank and Zed, I think the thing I'm most proud of is that there's lots of stuff in the film. I think I really just stayed true to certain core aspects of the story, because like I wrote this film when I was like, basically 32, 33. I'm a very different person. Like I've had a daughter since then. I am not the person I was when I was 33. But there's a lot of things that I actually had to just watch the film to double check a file last night for the first time in a long time. And I was like, man, this is a pretty good film. I really like it. But there's things
ironic because I actually just turned 32 this year. So maybe I'm just starting.
Yeah, but it's like, I've been working on this film for almost like 20% of my life. It's a long time.
Yeah.
So, but there's things I did, like, I'm really proud that there's no jokes about sex. Like there's a female character that had to go in the woods to meet a male character. This female character would never be attracted to this guy. In most films, oh, she's going to go out with this. And the guy's a schlub. And I spent a long time going like, I have to get a reason for her to go out there that's not involving sex or attraction, because it's just, she would never go for this guy. And I'm not going to have that trope. So I made him a baker. And she thinks he's got some like chocolate croissants out in the haunted woods. And I'm like, hot babes would risk their life to go get a chocolate croissant. Like, that is fine. She can be really dumb that way. Well, I wanted to have a puppet of color in the film. That was really important to me. And it was something that I was worried about. I was like, man, if I put a black puppet in my film, how is it not going to be racist? Like, it's a caricature. I was really worried about it, but I was like, you know what? And I was also worried. I was like, if I put like a black puppet in my film and it comes across as racist, the whole film will get thrown away, right? So I was worried. It's a real risk. And at the same time, I was like, well, if not me, who? Like, I can make all my characters. So if I'm not going to take that risk and put a black character in my film, like, I don't want to have that excuse. And this was back in like 2015. I'm really excited that I think that is like something that has getting more attention now. But I'm like, man, I'm really proud that I took that risk, and I talked to some friends who are black. I talked about the problem, got some really great advice. They basically said, just make a character who happens to be black. I was like, all right, cool. So I did that, but, and there's in some of the writing, but like, so there's things like that where I think I took certain risks that were important to me. It was risky to make a film with nothing but dolls. It was a risk, but it was important to me. It was risky in some ways to have like, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know how to talk about it in a way that's not awkward, but that I was like, I'm going to do this thing. And as I look at the film now, I think those are some of the things that have really paid off. I'm also really proud that through this crazy long, arduous process, my crew is all with me still. That's another thing that's like really exciting. I mean, people who have worked on this film for, essentially nothing for so long are still showing up to work with me on other things. So those are some of the things, but having that discipline is, I think, the difference. Like a lot of my favorite quotes are like, Chuck Close has a quote where he says, amateurs wait for inspiration, professionals just get to work. And all of my favorite quotes are like, a professional is someone who does a good job even when they don't want to. I mean, there's many times, like the last thing I wanted to do was to work on Frank and Zed. Before this meeting, I had to do some compression. Last night, I had to watch the film to make sure that there's not an error for this file that's going to be encoded. I didn't want to do that. I've seen this film a million times. I want to watch something else, or I want to relax. I did, and it ended up being great. I'm really glad I did. But yeah, like to your question, like I think that is the critical component, I think, of doing great work is discipline. It's nobody talks about it. It's not sexy, but the difference between like a talented neighbor and like someone who's going to do really compelling stuff is almost always discipline. I personally think that talent is common and cheap. and not a big deal. I think talent is way overrated. There's so many talented people. There's talent is just commonplace. Great ideas are commonplace. Discipline is rare, in my opinion. You know, that's what it's about.
Awesome.
That's a long soapbox answer.
Great, thank you.
Jeffrey or Mary Jane or Lori or Joyce and Howard. Jeffrey, did you have a question that you wanted to ask, or kind of?
I don't have a question. I just want to applaud you for, working with puppets and despite the digital era and CGI. It's everyone talks about practical versus CGI or digital versus photochemical negative, and when we started taking pictures, we didn't give up painting. We didn't give up oil painting. I think that it's beautiful when you keep working with it, despite what I'm sure was a tremendous dissenting argument against it. You did your thing, you did your own thing, and it's beautiful, and everyone gets to enjoy it as a result. And there's still a need for it. Technology doesn't replace things. It just opens things up to different avenues of expression, and to continue on to kind of carry the flag is commendable. It's beautiful. So good job, man. That's really impressive.
Well, thank you.
It's definitely something where, CGI is so readily available now. And there's certain things where, if you're going to make a film about robots fighting in space, you need to do it in CGI. But when you see things that are done practical and filmmakers go that extra mile to not just cop out and say, well, we'll do it in the computer, but take The Dark Knight, actually blowing up a real hospital, not just, making a big explosion in a computer. That makes that so much more impactful and so much more meaningful when they're going that extra distance to still try to find a way to do something practical, when it's really audacious, when it's really risky or complex, where it might be easier to do it in CGI, but to say, you know what, to really get that genuine vibe, I want to do it with practical is, I agree, that's incredible. I wish more filmmakers did that, but then there's always the safety matter and how maybe becomes a big issue. And but that's one thing that stood out to me when I first saw Frank and Zed when you submitted it, was this was done entirely by hand, in person, with handmade puppets. That alone makes this incredible, regardless of what kind of film it is. So that's what really attracted me to the project. Mary Jane or Joyce or Howard or Lori, I know you haven't had a chance to ask a question yet.
I'd just like to say quick, I think that your dedication and creativity with these puppets is just, for me, it's mind blowing. And I never realized the work that actually goes in to putting on even just a puppet show, let alone you doing a film like you did. It's amazing. And I'm hats off to you for 7 years of it. And one little thing, how did you know when you finally were done after 7 years? How did you know it was the end?
Well, here, Joyce, I'll show you a dirty little secret.
Well, technically, it sounded like he was still working on it last night, so I'm not sure.
I know.
Here are my notes for changes from watching it last night. Yeah, Baker Prime, I'm dying way up. Music from Olaf Bit, let's see. Anyway, so yeah, you don't finish anything, you run out of time.
Yeah, okay.
But part of it is like, I used to do this, and I do it a bit with the writing and stuff. It's like, when I was doing short films, I would book the premiere before I started the film.
Wow.
And that's why it's got to get it done. And that's just because there's a thing called Parkinson's law, which is the work will expand to fit the allowed time. And that's one of the big things that I've been working on now. It's like I've been talking about discipline. I was like, I got to make films faster, so what am I going to do? So that's one of the reasons there's one big puppet in this. So, so with this one, there was a little bit of that, and there's actually, so there may be some changes and things like that, but there was a point. I think the more specific answer was, there was a point where I knew I was delivering the experience for the audience that I wanted. And there was a place where I thought, there as part of this big circle, there's a place where I thought I was. I realized I'm not delivering the experience. I'm never going to be able, oh wait, maybe this is how I can do it. And now it's delivered. That was about a year of that, where I was figuring out the story and really trying to navigate a place between what is rich and interesting and what's complicated, what is compelling and what is like boringly straightforward. Because one of the things that's really tricky with the narrative is like, the main characters don't talk and then the other puppets do. So figuring out some of that stuff was very challenging. Also, there's real limitations with the camera angles and kind of orienting people. So there was a lot of film lessons that I had to make sure, like for instance, in an early version of the film, there was all of these jokes that were really funny, but the audience didn't know that they were standalone jokes. So for instance, there was one of my favorite jokes was when they were first going into the castle, one of the characters was like, "Ooh, it's cold in here, it's chilly in here." And it's like a really funny thing to say on the way to this big epic battle. The problem is, people thought that that's an important information, like, oh, there's an iceberg in the castle. It's cold. That's a clue, right? And so there were jokes like that. So there was a point where I knew the jokes were funny and people were laughing, but I knew something was off and I didn't know what. It's like the piano was out of tune and I had to train my ear to realize it was out of tune, then learn how to tune the piano, then actually tune the piano. And there was about a year of that. But there was a point where I was like, I watched it with an audience and I was like, now it's cooking. Now people are having the right experience. But yeah, and then I watched it last night and I was like, wow, I want to change this and this and this and this.
Well,
Good job.
we've got about 15 minutes left. Lori and Mary Jane, I know you haven't had a chance to talk yet. Did you have something you wanted to bring up with Jesse?
Well, I watched the film, Jesse, so I was sort of not saying anything because I wanted to hear the conversation and not to do any spoilers, but I was one of the reviewers for KIF, so I already had an opportunity to watch it. But you had mentioned earlier with the one puppet that it was like uncomfortable, either the teeth or the eye. I forget what you're referring to, but I think that's actually a really good term because it was sort of like, how do you feel about the visual aesthetic in some of the scenes and just the overall? And it's like uncomfortable is actually like a really good term. And I'm definitely not into horror, so it was definitely not my go-to type of movie to watch. But it was like, in some instances, I think the horror or the gore was actually worse to see with puppets than to actually see with people. I think I would have been less scared or less horrified if it was actually people. And I don't know if it's just because I've gotten so used to, that, or if it's just because I associate puppets with, like the Muppets or like Sesame Street. And so like doing the flip on the head, it's just like this should be like kid friendly. And then what are these puppets doing to each other? Killing each other and whatnot. And so, I guess just thinking about that while you're talking and stuff, but then I don't want to spoil the movie. But at the end you did, like during the credits, you showed sort of how the film was made and did some thoughts there. And I almost think that you could like make a whole film just showing how it was made, because that was super interesting in my opinion. But I just major kudos to the creativity and the perseverance over the years to work on this and continue working on this to get it done.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think speaking of uncomfortable, honestly, I think one of the most innovative things and bold decisions in Frank and Zed is that the regular human puppets do not look like regular felt puppets. There is like such a strong generic geometric shape to felt puppets that you see that's very much like, I don't know, like Avenue Q or a lot of Sesame Street stuff where it's these really round, perfect kind of geometric shapes that is like, it's just so pervasive. And I actually think that is, for me, like one of the things that is, I think is really challenging for people is that the felt puppets don't follow that design. And it's so against, it's like when you hear like a gamelan or like an Indonesian or like a Persian songs that aren't in our traditional mnemonic scale, it just sounds off. And you don't realize it, like, oh, well, you've only ever heard things in the Western tonality. And so anyways, like when you talk about the puppets and some of that uncomfortableness, I really think that's a big part of it. Because there's a lot. So for instance, even me who worked on the film, a lot of the felt puppets, when I first saw them, I was like, oh, they're so ugly because they're so different, you know? And after a while, I came to really like love the aesthetic, you know, and that's like a lot of my favorite foods and a lot of my favorite music and books are all things that I didn't like the first time. You know, it's too accessible, it's too easy. And it's only the things that are more challenging that become rewarding. So I'm hopeful that, anyway, so that kind of comes to mind with some of the uncomfortableness with Frank and Zed. And one of the things I'm most proud of. And also, like, for instance, like Frank and Zed has like felt puppets and like basically rubber puppets in this together, you know? And that's also something that like only one person has actually commented on. Like and I'm always shocked that people don't talk about how different, you know, like here's one of the felt puppets.
So like all the humans are felt and the monsters are rubber.
Yeah, but here's Kevin, you know, and they're totally different designs, aesthetics, and they're in the same movie and nobody even, and that's something too that like, one of my main puppeteers, he was like, how is that going to work? And I was like, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And it was.
Well, we have about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that everyone can share final thoughts, and we'll leave the last note to you, Jesse, to provide any sort of advice or suggestions or whatnot. So let's quickly go around and see if anyone has any final comments or quick little things they want to touch on before we call a night. And again, thank you everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. So Wayne, why don't we start with you?
Oh, just thoroughly enjoyed it. You mentioned that trophy that you'd received that your daughter's really fond of. It made me think of an award that I got. One of the local theaters has an annual award show, kind of like the Tonys, Klamath Falls version. I was awarded the Best Ensemble Actor Award, and I wound up, I got my award, and oh, that's nice. Next day I looked up ensemble. You know, I was like, not classically trained theater actor.
Joyce and Howard, any final thoughts for Jesse or just in general you want to share?
Just anxious to see the film.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Thanks, Howard.
See, this is all part of my wild conspiracy to sell tickets whenever we can actually secure Jesse to come down and show the film.
So I'm saying it's all entertainment. See, it's all entertainment.
Lori did point out that Friday the 13th falls on May 13th next year. So maybe we can tentatively try to target mid-May for having you come down, and we'll do a screening at the Ross Ragland or somewhere and have some fun with it. Court, anything you want to share?
Hey, it was lovely. It was quite informative. And if you get around to the VR part, give me a call.
Okay.
Mary Jane, do you have a final question or anything you'd like to say?
Oh, maybe just a comment. I just really appreciate your presentation tonight. It was fun to listen to, and I just admire your ability to make a film that's somewhat out of the box, and the these awesome little puppets out of garbage of our earth. It's, I admire those abilities that you have, and you have an extremely creative mind, and I love your puppets.
Well, thank you.
Lori, is
And
it?
I just want to add maybe one more thing, and that is, I sense from what I hear you say and share about your film that there's a wholesome message behind everything, and I think that's really great, and it's what we need these days.
Well, thank you.
Lori, anything you want to talk, since you're the only other one here who has actually seen the film aside from me?
Yeah, I definitely had to watch some like kitty or puppy movies before going to bed that night. But no, I mean, granted, I'm not a horror person, but that's not my go-to genre. But I did really enjoy it, and but I just applaud your creativity as well as your energy talking about it, and I really appreciate that you showed some of the puppets and the props tonight to get a little bit better view and a little bit different lighting, because especially watching the film, it's sort of, the lighting is sort of really dark, or in some, not all the cases, but just to get it in a, not in the scene, I guess, to see it out of the scene, if that makes sense. But yeah, so just thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Cassidy, is there anything you want to share?
No, thanks so much, Jesse, for chatting with us tonight. I've been just so intrigued in this whole conversation. It's a whole new world for me, and it's just so awesome. So really stoked on your creativity and stoked on what you brought tonight. So thank you so much again.
Well, thank you.
Jeffrey, anything you want to share about it, or?
No, just the same. Thank you so much for sharing everything.
You're welcome.
And Bowen?
I guess it's just when you were talking a little bit about just how you really wanted to do your own thing, and that you notice a lot of kind of the rehashing of the same kind of material. There's a lot of risk aversion in media and Hollywood, just kind of in general, and I think we're seeing that more and more. So I guess I just say that I had kind of no expectations with this particular one, no good or bad, but it was extremely refreshing and enjoyable to kind of see this new medium and see kind of what you're doing with it is something that I've never really heard before. And for me personally, I think authenticity is one of the most important aspects, if not the most important aspect, to any art form. So to see somebody that's taking that mantra so completely and diving in as much as possible and really creating some wonderful pieces of art out of it, I think it's wonderfully refreshing and cool to see. So I'm really happy I got to talk to you and hear from you.
Oh, thank you.
Before you sign off, Kurt, one last thing. On the vein of actors speaking off screen, like what you do in the puppets, my next role, I'm going to be off screen playing the voice of God. And I could just see my daughters right now going, one of them saying, "See, I told you I had a God complex." And the other going, "Yeah, I know." You had to be there. Never mind.
Well, I want to do a very quick poll just to see if Klamath Film put in the work to put on a special screening of Frank and Zed, maybe bring out some props and costumes and bring Jesse down. Who would come out to the Ross Raglan to see that and make sure to bring some friends? Yeah.
I'm trying to bring my friends to the film festival this year.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Kat stepped away for a minute. So Jesse, I want to make sure that you have the final word. So with our group of actors and filmmakers and film fans, any advice or suggestions or recommendations or final thoughts that you would like to share? The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I think I would say, if you wanna do something creative, or if you have any creative ambition, just like Dwayne and Mary and Court and so many other people seem to be doing, and Kurt, of course, is just like, yeah, just go for it. And like, I think finding a way to do it and finding a way to enjoy the process. I mean, a lot of times, even with making Frank and Zed, it was like, oh, once I do this, I'll do a real film. And at some point kind of realizing, well, this is the real thing. Like, you don't get it's not a dress rehearsal for life. You're in life already, So I would say that's my big thing. It's like, I think just kind of go for it, find a way, like figure out a way. Like I always say, like, you have in your head the most complex, object in the known universe. I mean, I think elephants and dolphins actually have more complex brains, but that doesn't sound as cool, but in here is like one of the most powerful tools in that humanity has ever created. And if you put it to use, kind of saying, how can I, it will give you an answer, and I also want to say, like, I'm an artist. And if you do come down to Klamath, or if you want to support me and go to Puppet Core or follow me or anything like that, one of the things I'm really working to do is to build a following. And so if you're interested in my work and you find me on Facebook or Instagram or the Puppet Core site or any of those things, that's where I'm pushing out a lot of information about my next film. And there'll be some, like, hopefully, like, fun opportunities to get interesting things and artifacts and bits of garbage that has now become, immortalized in film, etc. So anyways, as I build my career, that's one of the things I'm learning to do, is saying, like, hey, I'm looking for help. And if you're interested in being part of this journey with me and helping me out in some way, spreading the word, etc., I would love that. And also, I want to take a second and thank Kurt, who has been really, like, such a strong advocate and has worked really hard to engage me as I've been, like, running around like a madman up here, like, trying to get this film out. So I want to take a second also. Thank you, Kurt, so much for all your patience with me.
At some point, we'll put an event together. So we do have someone in town who has an incredible haunted house and tons of props. So I'm thinking maybe we can line him up to decorate the theater whenever we get around to doing a screening. So Jesse, thank you so much for joining us. I hope this was as fun for you as it was for all of us, getting to talk about puppets and filmmaking and the crazy story behind your amazing film that now everyone wants to see. So thank you for being here. Good luck with all of the changes that you need to now make. And just as a reminder to everybody, we do this every month on the first Thursday of the month from 6 to 8. We'll probably just do the meetings via Zoom for the next couple of months because weather is starting to turn a little bit. And then when the weather clears up a little bit, we'll get back to doing it in person again. So just keep an eye on your email. And I'll have announcements coming up soon. When there's cast and crew calls, I'll send those out via email. And if anyone needs to check out equipment for their own projects or need help with anything, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what Klamath Film is here for. So thank you, everyone, for being a part of this. And thank you, Jesse, for joining us. This was super fun. And hopefully we'll get to see you again sometime.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Super, just one last super quick thing. Has anybody ever told you look like Vsauce?
I don't know who Vsauce is. So I'm
okay. All right. Just a quick question. He's a really cool YouTuber, but I was just wondering.
Okay.
We're not sure if that's a compliment or not, but we'll roll with it.
I'll take it.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Night, everybody.